On this episode of Cape Media News, a legislative breakfast in Yarmouth, Santa's flock to Cape Cod, and Chatham's annual town meeting. These stories and more tonight on Cape Media News. Good evening and welcome to Cape Media News, your source for hyperlocal news that matters. I'm Lauren Williamson. A disheartening event in Yarmouth this past weekend. Local police are on the lookout for individuals responsible for what appears to be a deliberate act of harm against a koi pond on Pleasant Street. Officer Ryan Murphy responded to a homeowner's report on Sunday, indicating that a substance, likely soap or detergent, had been dumped into the koi pond sometime between late Saturday evening and early Sunday morning. The homeowner, an experienced koi keeper, attempted to save the fish, but sadly two were already dead upon Officer Murphy's arrival. Despite the owner's diligent efforts, all 22 fish in the pond, some of which had been cared for over 2 decades, have since died. The Yarmouth Police Department is urging anyone with any information of the incident to come forward and assist in identifying the perpetrator. You can reach Officer Ryan Murphy via email rmurphy@yarmouth.ma.us or by phone at 508-775-0445, extension 2424. The Chatham's Farmers Market is back. Starting on May 16th, the market will be open Tuesdays from 3 to 6 p.m. at their new location, Our Lady of Grace Catholic Church, located at 60 Meeting House Road in South Chatham. Filled with local farmers, bakers, fishermen, and farm fare, come celebrate local farmers' abundance. For more information, check out their website at chathamfarmersmarket.org. The town of Dennis held their annual election this week with just under 17% voter turnout. The only contested election was for a 1-year term for select boardmen between incumbent John Terrio and challenger Wayne Bergeron. Terrio won his bid for re-election with 54.7% of the vote. The Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with Dennis and the Greater Hyannis Chambers, held a legislative breakfast at the Red Jacket Beach Resort in South Yarmouth this week with State Representatives Kip Diggs, Stephen Ziaros, Chris Flanagan, and State Senator Julian Cyr. For more on this, here's Ryan Downs.
The Dennis, Greater Hyannis, and Yarmouth Chambers of Commerce held a legislative breakfast on Tuesday, May 9th at the Red Jacket Beach Resort in South Yarmouth. The breakfast featured a panel discussion with several local legislators, including State Representatives Kip Diggs, Stephen Ziaros, and Chris Flanagan, as well as State Senator Julian Cyr. During the breakfast, Representative Diggs spoke about the importance of supporting small businesses in the region.
All these things all resonate on the Cape. And to me, if you're working hard, I got to work twice as hard. And that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing back money. We've gotten quite a few earmarks.
While Representative Flanagan highlighted the support Cape receives from the state.
The ongoing conversation that we'll be having, myself and the rest of the Cape delegation, is really bringing state and federal resources to the municipalities to really help them with that.
Representative Ziaros emphasized the importance of public safety and veteran welfare.
I always look at things from a public safety perspective, and I think you should too. In your world of business, we can't have successful business if we're not safe. We can't send our kids to school if they're not safe.
State Senator Cyr discussed the status of the state budget perspective, fiscal perspective, and the challenges we are facing as a community.
The wastewater really relates to the other really big challenge we have in the region economically, and that's housing. This has been a crisis, as you know, for 20 years. The pandemic put that on steroids. We're now, we've seen a 54% increase in median home prices in the region in 5 years.
He also spoke about the need to address issues such as workforce, affordable housing to support our economic stability.
The Chamber had a great study, the Cape Cod Chamber had a great study, a very sobering study, but a helpful study. 47% of our workforce is now coming over the bridges every day.
The panelists then took questions from attendees during a Q&A session. providing guests an opportunity to engage with their elected officials and raise important issues affecting their communities.
The question is, can you please give us your commitment that as our legislative delegation at the state level, you'll do everything you can to move the needle with the feds on this issue as quickly as possible.
Overall, the legislative breakfast provided an excellent opportunity for local legislators to learn more about the needs and priorities of their voters, and for the attendees to voice their concerns and ask questions of their elected officials. To watch the whole breakfast panel, head to capemedia.org. For Cape Media News, I'm Ryan Downs.
Coming up after the break, Santa's in May. Stay tuned. The northern right whale is a critically endangered species which visits the Cape waters each year. On April 24th, 2023, Massachusetts celebrated its first annual Right Whale Conservation Day. And our content producer, Christian Garnett, spoke with representatives from IFA to discuss the new holiday and the threats facing right whales.
Hi, I'm Christian Garnett, and this is Cape Media News Insights. The northern right whale is a critically endangered species that visits Cape Cod each year, but unless changes are made soon, their dwindling numbers will deplete to zero. I'm sure I speak for all Cape Codders when I say that I don't want to lose these giant mammals, so I invited 3 specialists with ties to NOAA and IFA to come speak on the subject and about the first annual statewide Right Whale Conservation Day.
My name is Kathleen Collins. I'm our Marine Campaign Manager here at IFA, the International Fund for Animal Welfare. We're an organization that works to help animals and people thrive together. And I run our North Atlantic Right Whale campaign, and I'm particularly excited that the state of Massachusetts has officially declared April 24th North Atlantic Right Whale Conservation Day. And we're very excited about this public display of support for this species because they're critically endangered. They're currently listed at less than 340 remaining in the population with less than 70 reproductive females. They're currently at a tipping point where we need to act now in order to actually save this species. The North Atlantic right whale has gotten themselves into this position where they're critically endangered because they face a variety of human-driven threats. Primarily, they face the threat of entanglement in fishing gear and vessel strikes. So collisions from vessels of all sizes are a leading threat for North Atlantic right whales. And their population really started to decline back in 2010 when their migratory pattern shifted out of the Bay of Fundy and into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, where they faced incredibly high rates of vessel strikes and entanglement in fishing gear because they were new to an area where there weren't any restrictions or measurements currently put into place to help protect them.
And what is now being done to prevent the problem from getting worse?
So 2 of the leading solutions that we advocate for here at IFA to help conserve and protect the North Atlantic right whale is the inclusion and the introduction of innovative fishing gear, currently termed on demand, which is essentially a fancy way of saying acoustic fishing gear that removes one of the vertical lines that is used between the buoy and the trap at the bottom of the water. Another solution that IFA strongly believes in is vessel speed regulation. So we know that the critical speed to reduce the threat of vessel strikes and deadly vessel strikes in particular for marine mammals is 10 nautical miles. So if all vessels go slower than 10 knots when they're in key areas or when whales are around, we know that the threat of vessel strikes will be reduced.
And you mentioned this removal of the vertical line.
The vertical line, yes.
Could you tell me more about that? That's for lobster fishing, right?
Exactly. So in a traditional lobster gear setup, you have a buoy on the surface of the water with a vertical line that connects down to the trap on the bottom of the ocean where the lobsters actually are caught. What on-demand gear does is uses a set of acoustics and GPS tracking to remove that vertical line. There's 2 different systems that are widely used right now. One is a lift bag system that removes the line completely. And another is a trigger system where you push a button and it triggers an inflatable ball that essentially carries the line upwards. So there's 2 different versions, but all of them reduce that vertical line.
That is so interesting. It makes sense that our fishing technologies and technologies in general would have to move past this way that they've been hurting the environment. No fishermen did that on purpose,
Right.
but that's how it is. And now we have to advance past that problem. And it looks like that's happening.
Exactly. And that's something that we really recognize here at IFA. We know that these fishermen are not out on the water wanting to harm any whales. That's never the intention. What we really try to focus on in our work and in our campaign is working directly with those fishermen to help come up with these innovative solutions that work for them while also help to protect these whales. And so we firmly believe that this is a path towards greater conservation measures while really keeping these fishermen on the water, doing what they do best and making their livelihood while trying to conserve this vulnerable species.
Everybody is hoping that the right whale species can bounce back, but is that a reality? What is that path to recovery look like?
The path to recovery for North Atlantic right whales is a bit of a long and winding path, but it's one that is possible. Certainly if folks are able to take those actions that we're currently advocating for and talking about right now. The sooner we act, the sooner the species will be saved. So that road to conservation and eventually a population that is thriving really depends on collective action within multiple industries, whether it's the maritime industry, the fishing industry, or even the recreational and tourism industry. Everyone really has a part to play here in saving this species.
The statewide right whale conservation day, I think it's a great idea, but I'm wondering, how do you think it will actually help in the future?
I think the Massachusetts Right Whale Day has a really strong potential to be used as a public advocacy tool. So getting that greater awareness of the species of North Atlantic right whales, as well as the threats and the solutions that are out there to help save this species, is critical to actually making the difference. And so having a state recognized day really provides that platform for organizations to leverage and for collective actions to be taken on one set day and really measure that impact. If you're looking to learn more about what you can do to help save the species, visit rightwhales.org. We have some action opportunities on that site, as well as additional information on the species and what can be done in the future.
After my meeting with Kathleen, I also met with 2 other right whale conservation specialists, including a local commercial fisherman. For more right whale conservation content, look out for that video on the Cape Media News YouTube channel next week.
This past weekend, Cape Cod played host to the Northeast Santa Gathering, which brought together Santa Claus enthusiasts from all over the country. Ryan Thompson was on the scene to capture the festive spirit and the heartwarming stories behind this beloved event.
Despite the warm weather, 'tis the season for spreading joy and cheer. And at the Aiden in West Yarmouth, something magical was happening this past weekend.
Ho, ho, ho! Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
The annual Northeast Santa Gathering brought together Santa Claus enthusiasts from all walks of life, creating a heartwarming display of goodwill and compassion.
So a question on a lot of people's minds is why in May? You know, maybe during December you might expect something, maybe even in July, but how about May? Why is that?
May? Because in December, when does Santa have time to do anything other than deliver presents? And July, well, a lot of the Christmas in July events are very important too, so that's why July. May, it's a little calmer, and who doesn't want to come to Cape Cod in May before the crazy season? I mean, it's great here.
The event is pretty cool. I've been involved for 15 years, and it was smaller, and then it's grown every year. We've raised money for St. Jude's Hospital. This year we're raising money for Hasbro Children's Hospital and also a local Cape Children's organization.
While many associate Santa Claus with mall visits and private parties, the Northeast Santa Gathering reveals the true essence of being Santa, an embodiment of kindness and compassion.
You can see anywhere from 100 kids a day up to 30 to 40,000 kids in a season. It's the best Santa gig in the world. That's what it is.
Santas go above and beyond, making profound emotional connections, especially with children facing challenging circumstances.
And they train to be good human beings towards everybody. And when you see them with children, and a particular case would be if they have a child with terminal cancer, and that wish is that I want to see Santa. Those are the gigs that you don't see. The kindness, the heart and soul.
These Santas spare no expense to perfect their appearance, from meticulously crafted suits to real beards and authentic accessories.
These are lace edge wigs. It's very natural. When these are on somebody and they're made up the right way, you'd never know it wasn't growing. It saved a lot of Santas from wearing those terrible party store beards, and they put them on and all of a sudden they're Santa.
They spend so much money on their suits and everything to become the persona they are. They can be competitive with their outfits and with their beard, and they like real beards, no fake beards, and real hair, and it's a competitive sport, though.
The impact of these Santas extends beyond their enchanting appearances. They create cherished memories, bringing smiles to the faces of both young and old.
They just make everyone happy. Everyone's like, who are these people? Like, they're important people to our world. And sometimes our world is sad. During COVID, it was tough, but they made so many people happy. So.
The Northeast Santa Gathering offers a range of activities, from classes and vendor rooms to auctions and outings.
They're out there having dinners, they're buying product, they're sightseeing, they're in museums. So, yeah, they're good for us. And May, who has Santas in May? No one I know.
It's just a good, fun event, and we have workshops for the Santas, so we teach each other. You're never too old to learn something. Remember that, kids.
This year, 75 Santas embarked on a joyous ride aboard the Cape Cod Central Railroad, spreading laughter and happiness along the way. As the Northeast Santa Gathering comes to a close, the impact of these Santas lingers. They remind us of the power of kindness and the joy that comes from giving. Their unwavering dedication to spreading joy makes them invaluable members of the community. For Cape Media News, I'm Ryan Thompson.
Harwich held a candidates forum this past weekend for candidates running for select board. 3 candidates are running for 2 available positions, and all 3 were present to answer questions from the public. Mitch Sock has more.
The South Harwich Meeting House played host to the Harwich Candidates Forum this weekend, the only forum to have all 3 candidates in attendance. Organized by both the Harwich Republican and Democratic town committees, the forum gave residents a chance to hear from each candidate and to ask important questions before the town election on May 16th.
So again, Pete Piekarski, I am also known as the candidate who took a family vacation during the last forum, a vacation in which I will not apologize for taking. But with that said, a little bit about me. I'm a 20-plus year resident of the town of Harwich. I realize that makes me the relative newcomer up here on the stage. So why am I running? Great question, and one I hear often from my wife. She is the smartest one in the relationship. The simple answer, I'm running because I can make a positive contribution to the board. We continue on this roller coaster ride with the elimination of what I term the manufactured federal monies. Monies that in all likelihood exacerbated this inflation. The elimination of these monies, without a doubt, will reduce the historically high revenue surpluses at the state and local levels, not to mention have a direct impact on discretionary spending on the individuals that were relying on that income.
I've worked hard to bring balance to what some think of as competing interest. As one of the few remaining people who worked to establish the Six Ponds District of Critical Planning Concern, that's a DCPC, to protect our environment in Harwich, I also more recently worked with the residents of West Harwich to establish another DCPC to protect our history and reinvigorate the economy of that village. Rarely is one issue the only important issue, and I try to look at all sides of all issues in a balanced and respectful way. Admittedly, sometimes I find myself at odds with others on the select board, but that's why we have a multi-member board. It's designed to respectfully represent differing viewpoints and to reach consensus. Whatever the challenge, I have been and I always will be there for all the citizens of Harwich, and humbly ask for one of your votes in this year's election on May 16th.
My name is Jeff Handler, and I'm running for selectman. I'd ask for both of your votes, but that would be a little greedy, so I'll just ask for one on May 16th. Small business is one of the main reasons I'm running for selectman. We need to protect it. We need to allow it to thrive in Harwich. And it taught me a few things. First, it taught me that I wanted to be a small business owner when I graduated college and I grew up. The second thing it taught me is how to become part of the fabric of our community, because that's truly what small business here in Harwich is part of the fabric of the community. I am a lifelong resident. My family has 100+ years in this town. Harwich is in my veins. It's where we call home. It's where my family hopefully will always call home. I'm a homeowner, I'm a small business owner. I will promise to embrace the past, but plan for our future.
Attendees didn't shy away from asking the tough questions either.
My question for each of you, should you be elected, what will you do to make sure that the conversations that we have in public meetings, especially when it involves volunteers, is done in a completely respectful manner?
It would come to me first. We operate on volunteers. And if we can't do better than we're doing right now, we're doomed, because most of what we do, the planning board, the regulatory bodies, the Conservation Commission, all of them are premised on a robust volunteer force populating them. And I have a history. I'll point anybody who I think is serious and brings some dialogue to the table. I don't have to agree with everybody, and I don't think it's wise to appoint people that you only agree with.
I've been in the people business for 33 years, and I'm still in business. So I believe that the way I handle the people that I deal with and the people I interact with is with the utmost of respect and the ability to listen and learn. Seek to learn first, seek to understand first. But there are going to be disagreements, and if I'm elected, I'm not going to be in lockstep with every single person here, but I can promise you that I will listen and I will be respectful. Respectful dialogue, cooperation, it is the pinnacle, it's the beacon of which all elected boards should follow. Thank you.
My wife and I have raised our children to be respectful of others and to stand up for others. So if I'm in attendance at a meeting and somebody's being disrespected, I'll make a correction. I'll make a correction of the chair or any other individual in the room that's disrespecting that person. As a couple of the other folks already mentioned, disagreement is a healthy thing. Debate is an incredible thing. But doing it with respect, not taking it personally, not being offended, is extremely important if you want to serve in public office, if you want to be a town leader, if you want to be a department head. And I would suggest that anybody that doesn't show up to work or to a meeting with that thought process in hand should go home. And a simple answer is I would interrupt the individual that's being disrespectful and ask them to show respect.
So the effort today was to get you educated and informed, and maybe you spread the word to some of your friends and families, whatever. And most importantly, to get people out to vote. Because if you don't go out to vote, if you don't attend town meeting, you have no right to complain about anything.
Coming up, a look at Chatham's annual town meeting. Stay tuned. Chatham held their annual town meeting last weekend, introducing a new electronic voting system. And though the new system helped speed up the process, the meeting still ran for over 5 hours. Mitch Sock has more.
In the town of Chatham, residents gathered for their much-anticipated annual town meeting this past Saturday. A substantial roster of 59 articles was brought forward for consideration. However, one specific article seemed to commandeer the spotlight. Article 18.
I move that the sum of $10,667,944 is hereby appropriated for the purpose of paying costs of design, construction, and equipping a new Center for Active Living, formerly known as the Council on Aging facility, at a site located at 1610 and 0 Main Street, Chatham.
The moderator, acknowledging the critical nature of the article, allotted a minimum of 30 minutes for open discussion, and as discussion commenced, a long line of residents queued up to voice their opinions.
First, I agree that the current COA facility is outdated and needs to be significantly improved, but I don't agree with the price. Secondly, I support the idea that Chatham needs many more affordable housing units, but I also believe that the true crisis facing this town, and you can see it just by looking around, is our inability to attract young families to secure our future as a viable and diverse community. The fiction is this facility is going to cost $10.6 million to build. Fact is, my adult working life was spent qualifying contractors for construction projects all over the country. I have participated in hundreds of meetings, and I can tell you that no legitimate public contractor would provide an estimate of the cost of this project without reviewing formal plans and specifications or a certified site engineering report.
As we heard, too big, too expensive. Now, every capital improvement seems to be too big every time it's brought before town meeting. The 2016 UMass Future Aging Needs Assessment for the town of Chatham recommended a 14,400 square foot facility based on our senior population. Over many years, the design requirements were sized down to the present 10,965 square feet. And how did that happen? It was through community outreach, over $150,000 in different feasibility studies, test fit analysis, 3 working groups, and I was on all 3 of them, all balanced against the cost, the tax impact, and the state of the economy. And to delay for some perfect solution will only increase costs. West Chatham is a prime, safe location given the traffic and pedestrian upgrades, its easy accessibility via car or bus, and its convenient walking distance to many resources and space.
With many still waiting to speak, the motion was made to move the question.
Mr. Moderator, we've kicked this around for years. I'd like to make a motion that we move the question.
Gentleman has moved the previous question. That is a motion to cut off debate. You recognize that there are at least 10 people who are wanting to speak, but the motion is to cut off debate. It itself is not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote.
However, the decisive moment was shrouded in a veil of disappointment. Article 18, despite the impassioned pleas, fell short of the necessary 2/3 supermajority by a razor-thin margin of just 1 vote.
The article does not prevail. The vote is 587 yes, 295 no. It was a close vote, but Article 18 does not prevail.
In the aftermath of the vote, a flurry of discussion ensued, leading to the decision to rerun the vote, offering a glimmer of hope for those in favor of the article.
The voting is now closed. Please display the count.
The second round of voting mirrored the first, and Article 18 once again was defeated by the narrowest of margins, a single vote. With its fate at the 2023 annual town meeting sealed, Article 18 becomes a poignant reminder of the profound impact that each voice can have in the democratic process. For Cape Media News, I'm Mitch Sock.
Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have a story you'd like to see covered, send us an email at newstip@capemedia.org. Tune in next week for more hyperlocal news that matters on Channel 99, Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV. For Cape Media News, I'm Lauren Williamson.